I've known Evelyn for about 15, 20 years since she came to Fresno. Our paths crossed when she came to work for me at Expo, and then she subsequently
we met
retired.
in 1995.
1995, so yes, because I've grown to love you very dearly and to enjoy you, and I want others to be able to get a flavor of who you are. And so that's the purpose of what we're doing here today. I wanted to find out a little bit about your family. Tell me about your mother. What was her maiden name and where was she from?
It was Georgia Pauline Elliott Otto. And she always said she dropped the E-L-L-I and kept the O-T-T and added an O.
Oh, for your Otto?
Right. Now, she was born in Chestertown, Maryland in 1920.
Okay, and how about your father? Tell me about your father.
My father was Walter Joseph Otto Sr. He was born in Brooklyn on January 2nd, 1913. And he was in the Second World War. He was a quartermaster on LST 109. He had a variety of jobs. He was a boiler maker. He laid carpet. He was a manager of a moving van lines, trio motor lines. And his last job was a clerk in a mom and pop grocery store, small one. And he was an alcoholic. And when he was drunk, he was the meanest man in the world. And when he was sober, you wouldn't want a better father. He used to hit us with the belt. And of course, he molested me. But of course, I'd forgiven him. And I didn't have really a chance to tell him that I forgave him. My parents died 10 days before my 21st birthday in an auto accident. And I didn't get a chance to tell him, but I know he knows it. You know, for what he did to me and thanking with my brother. But the idea of teaching my brother to drink, like my father's parents taught him to drink when they was in their teenage years. No, because they were alcoholics.
What makes you a little bit different?
Well, I was given permission to smoke when I was 15 and drink when I was 16. A week drink. And I just didn't like it. And of course I realized later on with drinking, I did smoke for over 20 years, but it was in the blood. And I got drunk once. I'm a typical Otto. Didn't remember. Luckily, I was safe at my aunt and uncle's house. And I wasn't driving.
So did you continue drinking after that, or?
A little bit here, a little bit there, but nothing to excess. Because I figured I could easily become an alcoholic. Like, you know, my family, I love them dearly, but there's only one thing in their lives that really, like my grandfather, Joseph John Otto. Yes, he was born in 1990.
In 1890?
I'm sorry.
That's right.
And during the Depression, he had a job. He was a foreman in a corrugated box company, making $250 a week.
Oh.
During the Depression. And he came to work one day, and he was drunk, and he cut off his ring finger. You know, the first part of his ring finger got caught on the machine because he got fired. And after that, it was just downhill. He ended up being a janitor, which isn't a bad job, but where he came from. And when he wasn't drinking, he was great too, so was my grandmother. Evelyn Marie Rosenberger, I was named after her. And she came from a large family. She was 4'11" all of her life. Her brother John was 4'7" all of his life. And that's where I get the shortness from.
How tall are you?
5'4".
You're 5'4".
Yeah. On my mother's side of the family, my mother was 5'7". My father was 5'8", so, because he got it from his father. And her brothers were close to 6 foot. And they were big men.
Tell us about your mom's parents. Did you know them?
No. My mother's mother died when my mother was 6 from an asthma attack.
Do you know her name or her parents' names at all?
Her name was Maddie, and I don't remember her last name. Now, with her father, Maddie, and this is George Elliott. And my mother was named after him.
Now, he's your
mother's father.
Your mother's father, and this is your mother's mother, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
He died in 1939, because I was born in 1940. The things I remember most when I was very young is going to my aunt and uncle's farm. Well, the Hubert farm. Palma Hubert.
And where was the farm located?
In Maryland. Don't ask me the town. It was so small you could sneeze and go right through it. The only population was 250. And I used to love going down there, and I used to feed the chicken. And the first time I cleaned raked their cage, and so I started feeding them. But my mistake was, and nobody had a camera, I sat down on the ground with a bucket between my legs. I ended up with birds all over me, the chickens. And I had one favorite chicken. I named her Red. She was the only Rhode Island Red. And she would see me and run and walk by me because I protect her from the Plymouth Rock, the white one. And one day I came out and I said, "Pop, where's Red?" "Oh, Ma killed it, we're having it for lunch." There's one gal that didn't eat lunch because that was my pet.
Aww.
And then we got older. I had 3 cousins. Daniel, brother, who was named Paulie after his father. And Diane, the baby. And they had a horse. Somehow I finagled it. I don't remember how. I owned the front half and they owned the back half.
Of the horse?
Of the horse. And in the summertime we used to get 4 on the horse. And we used to go down to the creek when it was so hot. Horse and all. The horse loved it. So did the other kids in the neighborhood.
Hold on.
And then, about 1949, I was 9 years old. We got a letter. We didn't have a phone at that time. That the horse died. Got out. I think Diane let it out.
Diane was the cousin?
My youngest cousin there.
Mm-hmm.
And got hit by something.
Oh.
She laid on that horse until they found her. She was just getting cold, and that horse was cold. The horse kept her alive with his body heat.
About how old was she then?
She was only about 4 or 5.
Oh.
Because I think my aunt got married again. Her husband, he found out that she had a boyfriend, and he went behind the house and took a shotgun to his head. He just could not take it. He worshipped her. She was a wonderful woman, but I don't know, and I think she got married again, and I don't know where they are. And my mother's brother, I know one is dead. I don't know where his family is. My first godson was his son. And when his wife died, she had given him away anyway, and given away other kids because she couldn't take care of them. And he just roamed the country, Uncle Russ. I know he died. Her brother Frank, Uncle Frank, who lived in Brooklyn, had 3 sons, and he married an Italian woman, so did my brother, and I don't know where they are either.
Do you have any brothers or sisters?
I have had one brother 9 months younger than 20 months younger than I.
What was his name?
Walter Joseph Otto Jr. And he died in 88, September of 88.
And where did he live?
At the time, he lived in Texas. And he was an alcoholic, and that's what killed him. I don't know what happened to his wife or his daughters.
Do you have any other brothers or sisters?
I had with Thomas Paul and Jeanette Dorothy. Named after friends and my mother's sister and brother-in-law, and Aunt Dorothy and Uncle Paul. Jeanette, she would have gone far if she had lived. They were only a few months old, and he would cry. Tommy would cry. He was hungry. So whatever side she was on, she put that arm around his and put her thumb in his mouth so he would stop crying. She used to nurture him. And one thing I remember when they were young, my father was drunk and he went to bed and went to sleep. He was supposed to watch him. My mother went to a baby shower. And I changed their diapers, and I was going to feed them. My mother told them, my father, that he would have to change the diapers and feed them. Well, she came in, and they were dry, and I snuck back to bed before she got in, and she ended up feeding them, and the next morning she was arguing with my father. They did that a lot when he was drunk. And I said, "What's wrong, Mama?" And she says, "What do you think of your father after 2 children don't know how to change a diaper?" And I started to cry. I didn't hurt him. I know I didn't hurt him. What I had done is I pinned the diapers to the sheet in their bassinets. And I figured I didn't want to, stick them with the pin. And then my mother and father started laughing. I was 6 years old. And she says, "Well, if you can do that, you can help me with the babies from now on." My mother was more or less an innocent. She couldn't tell me about anything. I had to go to my aunt about being a girl and turning into a woman, because she was the one I told about my father, because it was over 10 years that he molested me. because that put a stop to that. And of course it hurt my mother that I couldn't go to her. I said, but Mama, you couldn't have handled it. She left my father twice, but that was for his drinking. First time I was 10 and she took my brother and I. And she went to her brother Frank's and her sister-in-law, I can't remember her name right now. Second time, I didn't know where she was. And when they died, they wanted to know what she was wearing. And I said, well, I have to go upstairs and check my closet. She was wearing my clothes. I remember getting the phone call. I was at work at the bank. And they said, your grandfather's on the phone. And I'm laughing because somebody just told a joke, which just came from coffee break. And they said, oh, well, my grandfather said, you have to come home. Your mother and father are dead. Now, he was in shock. So I don't blame him for that at all. They said I screamed, dropped the phone, and started to fall backwards. Norman Sylvain ran.
That was a worker?
Yeah.
A worker?
The head teller. To catch me before I fell. I don't know how I they said they got me upstairs, and they took 20 minutes for me to stop screaming and crying, find out what happened. Well, of course, Mike Hewitt immediately put me on vacation. He said, you take as long as you want, you'll get paid for it. I grew up born in St. Petersburg, Florida. I was 2 months old when I came up, and I was 3 pounds, 15 ounces at birth, pound and a half the first week. I think it was 19 inches long or something like that. And allergic to milk. My mother's milk, they said it went sour. But all the nutrition and everything somehow just wasn't there. I was living on what they call a sugar tip, like a face cloth dipped in sugar water. And came up, and my mother said, when I was 6 weeks old, well, if she's going to die, she's going to die with a full stomach. She just, I don't know how she did it, but she pulverized it. She made her own baby food when I was 6 weeks old. That's what I lived on. When I did come out here, I landed in San Francisco, January 19th, 1963, 50 years ago. The 19th, coming up. And the Bidens were good to us, but what happened, it was a prompt plane. We went from the Navy field, which regular planes would land, Bradley Field in Connecticut, hit Idlewild, changed planes, still a prompt plane. We went down and we hit Washington, D.C., where we couldn't figure out, Dale and I were there, these kids came in and people were running around stores and everything else. They were senators' children. They were going home to Chicago. And their mother was going to meet them at but he couldn't, he was in Congress. And we landed, when we landed in New York, it was raining. When we landed in Washington, D.C., it was really raining. We hit Chicago about midnight. And it was rain and snow. They took the kids off, in which we had to wait for the all this and that. They were let off first before anybody else. They even had a security guard with them from the airline. Back then they took care of, not like today. Anyway, we took off and we had a box dinner at midnight. When we hit Denver, it was snowing so bad. They had reset lights in their runways. They were out there with lanterns flagging the planes so they wouldn't skid off the runways. So we had to disembark. I told my Dal, I said, something's wrong with that motor. It was going like this. And no. That's later. Well, we didn't have to disembark there. We were waiting and waiting and waiting, and finally we got up. And the pilot comes on. Whoa! That was something. We're the last plane out. They just closed the airport because of the snow. So we're coming over the mountains near LA. That's when I saw the prop. We laid over 2 hours in Los Angeles. They were about ready to pull out another plane, and they fixed it. So we finally, then we took off again. We landed in,
San Francisco?
No. Over the...
Sacramento?
No. Right next to Sacramento.
Oakland?
Oakland. And then we took off from there to San Francisco. It was 14 hours flying time, not the sitting on the runway or waiting 2 hours for them to fix the plane or anything. 14 hours flying time. And Dr. Byes was there, and he had a new car. He didn't even have the license plate on it. So he picked us up. He took us across the Golden Gate, took us down Lombard Street, the crookedest street in the world, and took us to San Jose. The next morning, he took us around to find a job. We got a job. And Dell went to work for El Camino Wells Fargo, and they put me on their special B. I had to float. It was a floating staff, special service, when they needed somebody there. I had to get there however I got there, because I didn't have a car. And I was taking the city buses, I was taking Greyhound, and I went into Sunnyvale. And the bus would let me off. But Dr. Byes took me until I got to know the area where the bank was. I walked a half a mile. Lucky I had plenty of time to go to the bank. And it was Good Friday. They closed for 3 hours. We had a 3-hour lunch. We came back, and the gal I was working with on the proof machine, she fell, well, coming back, she tried to get out, open the door and try to get out of the car on El Camino Real. She was drunk. I couldn't believe, I didn't drink. I didn't even have one. How you could drink your lunch and go back to work. And she fell up the stairs to go to the ladies' room, the staff room, and the operation manager came over to me, and he said, "Do you think you can do it?" I said, "I sure can. I didn't drink." I said, "How can the people do that?" That's before they close half a day, close at noon, and have the rest of the day off. And then they went to working all day, and you got another day off. And it seems she was upset because she was having an affair with an operations officer who was married. That's why when she got drinks, she was doing these crazy things. I enjoyed working for Wells Fargo. And then I ended up going to El Camino. We had an apartment there. We were here 3 days. We had an apartment. We had a job. We had an apartment. We had furniture. And moved into the apartment.